everyone. I am Britt Bartolini with MaintainX, and I want to welcome you to this very special episode of The Wrench Factor. Since it's International Women's Day, we are going to be talking to two very special women and diving into leadership and maintenance and manufacturing and industrial operations, really just highlighting game changers who are driving innovation and breaking barriers and just shaping the future of these industries. And so with that, I am honored to be joined by two incredible guests. We have Kate Schifani, who's the Senior Director of Mountain Operations at Vail Resorts, and Shari Patrick, who's a Senior Operations Leader in Chemical Manufacturing. And these two bring a ton of experience and insight, and I've been loving our conversations in the background. So I'm just so excited to have this conversation with all of you today. And with that, let's jump in. So obviously, I think we should just start with some basics. Can you both kind of introduce yourself and what you do and how you got started in your careers?
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Kate Schifani. I'm the Senior Director of Mountain Operations at Keystone Resort here in Colorado. I kind of got started in a really odd way. I went to the Air Force Academy, and they make you pick your career field coming out of it. They send you off to the Air Force to see what people do, between in the summer, between some of your years. And I spent a summer at Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane, Washington. And the first couple of days I was with the contracting squadron, and I don't know what they did. I shredded paper for some guy for 6 hours. And then the next week they put me on the flight line in aircraft maintenance and just threw me in a truck, and I was out there launching jets, catching jets, helping guys fix them. And it was just the most fun I think I could have legally. And so I knew I wanted to go into aircraft maintenance when I graduated, and that was the career I picked. And besides the 1 week at Fairchild, I didn't really have a lot of context for it, and it just turned out to be the best career field I could think of. And as I was transitioning out of active duty, I just got a job at a ski area, what I thought would be kind of 1 year, figure things out, and then go do something else. And it was 12 years ago, just about, and has really turned into a career because all of the things I learned leading maintenance in the Air Force, were really, really important and applicable in the ski industry. And so I kind of just ended up here, did a lot of jobs for the ski industry, worked safety, worked health and safety, worked lift maintenance, snowmaking, pretty much tried it all. And I think I just kind of ended up here because I had a willingness to do things that I didn't even really understand or know about, and had a great time doing them, and still have a great time doing them.
Yeah, that sounds like so much fun in every single area. But also thank you for your service. And Shari?
Hi, I'm Shari Patrick. I'm based in the Atlanta metro area, and I started doing STEM activities when I was in middle school. And back then it was called engineering and math. It wasn't even STEM. And I was telling Britt earlier that I was a member of the Boy Scouts Engineering Explorers Club because that was the only thing available for us back in the late 80s. And so I ended up getting a STEM scholarship to go to Georgia Tech, and a couple of scholarships. And one of those scholarships ended up with an internship working for DuPont. And so I am a chemical engineer. I started my career out with DuPont, spent 15 years with them, started in manufacturing, and decided that I loved it. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship. I love the pace of it, the variability, the flexibility, the intense problem solving, but it can be very demanding at times. And so I've moved around a lot. I've worked for a few different companies, but have maintained this almost 30 years career in manufacturing just for the thrill of it. And so it's my happy place at this point.
I love it. And I think there was kind of a common theme there where you guys both knew what you were passionate about, but didn't directly carve a path to the industries you ended up in, but really just followed what you were passionate about. And I think there's an opportunity there, right? We were kind of talking before we started about inspiring kids in general to get back into these careers, and particularly women, right? Because there's a lot of opportunity here, and there's a lot of thriving that's happening for both of you. So I would love your perspective on that angle. How are women shaping the future of maintenance and operations in these more industrial fields?
If
Yeah.
I could just quickly give a shout out to Mrs. Carolyn Joyner, my ninth grade biology teacher, who really nurtured this love of math and science in me and hundreds of other students. She encouraged us to pursue careers in engineering and helped us along the way. But in terms of how women are changing the game, I see women really embracing change, particularly in the areas of automation and data collection. I see women doing great work challenging the status quo as data scientists and really trying to use data in an innovative way to improve how we run the plants, how we run manufacturing, how we run maintenance. And they're trailblazing in the same way that men are doing it, but unapologetically, particularly in the space where there are so few women. Um, I can count, on my hand the number of times that I was, you know, more than five women in the room with me at work. And so I see women really taking this on and blazing trails for the next woman behind them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of bold and confidence is a huge part of it, and just being able to like see a future that might be different just because of some of the perspectives that women bring uniquely. I think everybody is sort of a compilation of the stories that have made them who they are, and we bring just a different perspective than even like my brother has a wildly different perspective than I do. We have basically the same upbringing, right? So I think about how women are really changing operations and maintenance and manufacturing, and it's just a willingness to try new things, a willingness to see a different future, and to really push the boundaries of getting there. And I think there's a lot of ways to do it. Shari, that's a great point. I think the data science piece is kind of the new emerging field that's really exciting for a lot of people. But even in like process improvement spaces, or just like people that are able to take different life experiences and apply them in a new context is really where you see a lot of innovation. And so that's been pretty exciting for me to be a part of and see in my own work here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was having a conversation last night at dinner with a client, and he was like, all the women on my team are the best at creating SOP. If I want something to be repeatable for the rest of my team, they're on it because they're usually the only one, in their class or whatever, and they had to kind of forge their own way. And if I want my team to know what the baseline best is, I have them follow her SOPs or their SOPs, because he had multiple now. I mean, I thought that was a really interesting perspective of just a skill set he's highlighted that he sees consistently by hiring more women. And Shari, I want to double tap on something you just said about metrics and bringing that into manufacturing right now, right? So can you share with me how, as a leader, you've been using metrics to kind of guide your team or the business success?
So metrics is a funny story. Employees love autonomy. Everyone wants to chart their own path and do what they think is right. And metrics are how we build alignment from top to the bottom of the organization. And so everyone has their own metrics. It is how we run the business every day to know whether you're winning or losing. For operators, it may be downtime or quality or rejects. For maintenance guys, it may be, time to complete a repair or mean time between failures. For supply chain, it may be, the time to fulfill an order. We have those metrics stacked within the organization. And I'll tell you a quick story. I had a plant manager assignment once, and I had a routine. I'd walk into the plant, I'd go to the control room, and I had a performance dialogue, a conversation that I had with the employees every morning at about 6:30ish. And after a while, they all knew the questions I was going to ask, and they all knew the appropriate answers. And it was all KPI driven. And occasionally, those operators would delegate up to me because they knew they hadn't met their KPI. They knew it was beyond their control, and they wanted Cherie to take the ball to say, hey, I'm going to get this fixed. This was something we did every day for 2 years, and it really helped them take the lead and know and say, this is what I'm going to do to be successful, and this is my part in the plant's success.
That's wonderful. KPIs is something we talk about so much here at MaintainX with all of the leaders and different stakeholders, but we touch a lot of different industries. And Kate, I know it's much different running operations at Vail, right? So how are you kind of using KPIs or data or technology in general to improve or drive your operations as a leader?
Yeah, I think like the adage that like what gets measured gets done is super true. And so when I was directly in charge of our snowmaking operation, which is, you know, one of those jobs you don't even know exists until you know it exists and you're doing it, and it's probably the most fun thing because you take like a grassy hill and then in a couple of days turn it into a ski area. It's amazing. But one of the things, you know, we used to measure in snowmaking was output, right? We have a whole network of pumps and then a bunch of equipment that converts water into snow and a bunch of people operating it. And it was just output based. And so every year it was like, look how much we made. And then it occurred to me with my team when I was in charge of this, like, is that really the right thing we're measuring? Is it only output? Like if we put a whole bunch of snow where we don't need it, we've just wasted a whole bunch of time and resources, right? So we worked as a team to kind of map out what would be the absolutely perfect snowmaking season. From the day we turn it on to the day we turn it off, if we were 100% effective at every single one of those minutes, like how long would it take us? And we found that it was like wildly less time than we were currently taking to complete our production season. And so we used that piece of data that basically was a fiction, right? There's so many things that are going to prevent you from being 100% effective all the time. Yeah. But it gave us a different type of kind of benchmark to work towards. Like what decisions can we make both during operations and during planning and maintenance and prep that will get us closer to that ideal. And so I think it's this moment where we had a new piece of data, a new kind of KPI that we were working towards. And the 2 seasons after that were the most successful that we ever had. And it was partly because we started to think differently about what we did instead of just like pure output. What is the most we could achieve? It was like, what is the most we can achieve in the right place at the right time and the right quantity? Yeah. And it was pretty transformational and super, super fun to be a part of. I have this like huge Gantt chart in the back of my office that people are like, I can't believe you still have that. I do. I look at it all the time because that's the power of data and KPIs when you can leverage them to create not only like a different type of thinking, but a cultural change that has everybody driving towards the same outcome.
Yep. I think for both of you, right, the common theme was it's not just fancy dashboards and bells and whistles. These are action items, and we need the data to drive actions and behaviors, right? And so we talk a lot about, I hear this all the time on calls with clients, is we want predictive maintenance. I'm like, what does that actually mean to you? Do you have good enough data coming in to have the automation of the machines just predicting what needs to happen? Chances are no, and you still need those frontline people to analyze the data and make both of you told stories of like this critical thinking you had to bring into it. It's not just graphs and KPIs. How do we make this actionable and something that we're building a greater output on, right? The Japanese saying Kaizen, right? It's just 1% more, just 1 inch more, just 1 inch better every day adds up. But you need the data to drive that. And that kind of leads us in another common discussion we're having in the industry right now is about automation. How do we make the more menial things or make things more automated so that the frontline workers can get out there and get things done quicker? So we're seeing that 1 inch better, right? So I would love to hear your perspective, maybe Shari, on this one of how you feel like automation is changing it and empowering your people.
So the ways I see automation being used in the chemicals industry, I see automation being used in that mostly data collection, automated downtime reporting, automated notifications of deviations, whether it's a quality deviations, heaven forbid, environmental deviation, safety issues. It is how we collect data and make decisions faster. And so by automating that data collection, we can analyze it faster. If we automate the data that we collect, particularly maintenance data, we can use it to monitor our equipment to get ahead of failures, to reduce downtime, and ultimately reduce cost. And so automation is helping us make decisions faster, make decisions better, and bring more context to a larger group of people so that everyone gets on the same page quicker. Before, it was about collecting all this data, doing this analysis, and trying to give a presentation, your 30-minute or 30-second spiel to the boss on why we needed to spend this money. But with automation, everyone can go along the ride together and see the problem developing and see the solution appear at the top versus one person in the back room trying to crunch all the data.
Yeah. Yeah. And giving, again, that transparency across the team. I think traditionally, at least in these industries, maintenance has been seen as a cost center. And what you were just saying is really the more we can get ahead of it, the more we stay up and the more money we make, right? Or make our customers happier, right? And it should always be about the customers and the output. We get that. We all get that. That's why we got into these industries. But how are we doing that efficiently? And so I guess, Kate, for you, I know that you guys recently have purchased MaintainX, which is great, but that's embracing new technologies in what traditionally may have been done one way for a long time, right? So what technologies do you see that are emerging that are going to be pivotal in your role in your team? Or how are you embracing that change, I guess?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most excited about is just really like for so long in our industry, and I'm thinking specifically like chairlift maintenance, snowmaking, and vehicle maintenance, which are like huge arms of what we do. Like the maintenance and the operations sort of exist separately. And so it's like the people that fix the stuff are over here, the people that use the stuff are over here, and they're always breaking things and they can't ever fix anything, and then everybody's mad. And so like technology has this really incredible opportunity to help bridge that gap, right? If we create a platform that helps the users and the maintainers have like equal ownership over the success of whatever the thing is that we're trying to use and maintain, both teams are a little bit more engaged in the collective success. And so that to me is a really exciting piece of what I see, you know, for some of this technology. So I'm super excited that we're rolling out MaintainX across all these lines of business in our own company. And part of it is because of that. If we can get the operators and the maintainers on the same page and speaking the same language and looking at the same information aligned to the same goals, like we have a little bit better opportunity to be collectively accountable for the outcome. And that to me is a super exciting element to it. And like I could go on probably forever, but that if nothing else, like the cultural and mindset shift around like the people that use and the people that maintain are equally accountable for the success of the outcome, and providing a technology that gives us an interface to have those conversations and really understand and do that together is super exciting.
Yeah.
Kate, do you find that the speed of information getting out to people making a difference, or have you not gotten to that place yet?
100%, right? For so long, people would like check out a snowcat, let's say, on like a piece of paper that they check through, you know, the fluids, the wipers, the whatever. We're going through this whole checklist. It's in a book. And then we like throw it in the back of our snowcat and we're going to go out and groom a ski area. 2 shifts maybe. So for 16 hours. And then we show back up at the shop and we're like, hey, this one has some problems. I'll see you tomorrow. And so right there, we're missing, right? We don't have a good handoff. We don't have a communication. We don't have a way to know, like, was there any performance problems? What went well? What didn't go well? Like, how close are we to scheduled maintenance? How close are we to these other things? And the technology is really bridging that gap, right? I fill out my pre-op right here. The maintenance shop sees it. They know that after this shift, I'm going to be due for a maintenance so they can clear a bay, right? We can make sure that we're forecasting this. We're having the parts kits on hand. Like all of these things that just relied on people remembering them and doing them, we now have an interface that does for us and helps us remember those things. So we're not so reliant on institutional knowledge. We're reliant on process, and we're reliant on the people executing that process. And I'm super excited about that.
Well, thank you. You can come help sell MaintainX anytime you want, because that is absolutely our value point. But I think you highlight something that we were all kind of talking about before this call, and something that I came from a tech education company before kind of transitioning into MaintainX. And kids today are not even really carrying books. They're carrying iPads, right? So asking them to fill out a paper sheet and keep track of it may not be what inspires them. And Shari, you were talking about how yesterday you were in the schools. Like, I mean, I would love for you to actually share what you were sharing with me, and embracing that technology sooner, and then that encourages them in this workplace, right? So maybe share a little bit about what you were doing yesterday. I thought that was really interesting.
So I've been volunteering with Science ATL, which is a group that does science-based projects all throughout the Atlanta metro area. And yesterday was STEM Pro Day. So my husband and I went to a local school and we volunteered and did a short demonstration on lean manufacturing in a chemical setting. And so we took all these eighth graders through this simulation, and it was weird because when we walked into the classrooms, they're set up into clusters, and every desk had an iPad. And I'm walking in there with paper, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Do these kids even remember how to write? And so we had a great time doing the manufacturing simulation, and it was about critical thinking, but it just showed me how much times have changed, because you're right. Their user experience is an iPad, a cell phone, and they're waiting for industry, or they're looking for industry to give them that same experience at work that they have at school, that they have at home. But it was a great day nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though they have technology in front of them, all of us, all three of us here, we're makers at heart. We like building things. We like making. And so just because there's an iPad in front of me doesn't mean I don't want to go out there. I'm a woodworker. I built my own bed from scratch, like milled the wood myself. It lit me up for weeks, right? So I think that's the opportunity. And maybe that's where we can end this on a really high note of just sharing a little bit about your experience and where you see the future of these industries. And again, leaning into women in these industries. I know for me, it was my stepdad, who is a manufacturing maintenance leader at the only, big factories in our small hometown, who in my 20s was like, yeah, let's become makers together. And I went to tech shop and I got CNC certified. And I, again, dived into woodworking. And then it created this space that whenever I was considering a career change, it felt inspirational to come back.
You want to make me up some furniture? You can.
Oh, I will. Oh, don't you tempt me with a good time. I'm refurbishing some side tables right now. I'll send you photos. But I think that's it, right? Is it created a space for me to be like, oh wait, manufacturing is really cool, operations is really cool, and I can apply what is cool and technology here. And that's what lights me up about working here. So I'd love to hear from both of you. Like, what excites you about the future? And yeah.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of things, but I think like as we continue to get better and we integrate technology, one of the things that has the opportunity to do is to make opportunities available to more people in different ways, right? And so if you only came up in a certain way and that was the type of thinking and the type of training that would get you into these roles, like technology has the opportunity to kind of remove some of those barriers and make them accessible to other people. One thing I love about the ski industry is like basically nobody sits there and goes, oh, I want a career in the ski industry. We all sort of just end up here from somewhere else. And it's a really fun space that values individual people. And there's still not a lot of women doing mountain operations like I'm doing, even in our own company. It's not a huge number, but just being here and trying to break some of those barriers down. And like I said, technology, I think, has an opportunity to do that in a really interesting and exciting way. Like, might mean that the next generation has twice as many as the one I'm in, right? And the one after that has twice as many. And then in 2 generations, we're at parity. And like, that's what we want. We want the most perspectives that we can possibly get to solve problems, because we're going to have hard problems to solve in any industry. And like, the more ways you can look at those problems, the better you have a chance of solving them.
Love it.
Cool. What I'm excited about is I'm really looking forward to digital transformation in chemicals manufacturing. A lot of chemical plants are still stuck in the 80s in terms of how they process information. And I'm so excited to see that digital transformation where people are using the tools that we use in everyday life, bringing that into the plant and improving the user experience We know that there is a gap of engineering or STEM-based talent in manufacturing. And I think that bridging that gap will be driven by people being able to have the same experience they have outside, iPads, phones, you name it, computers, and bringing that into the workplace. Because I think when we do, this younger generation will come and they will absolutely blow our minds with the things that they can create and innovate and problem solve. So I'm excited about that.
I got chills from both of you because you're both so right. I want to thank you both very much for being a part of this very special Wrench Factor today. We will be sharing this out on socials, and I would love for both of you to, if you have an opportunity, share how others could get involved in the industries that you got involved in. Any resources you have, books, clubs, special groups, that would be really valuable, I think, to the audience today. And I just want to say, in the future, I really hope that what both of you said is so true. I believe that is true. I think the digital transformation, the opportunity to invite others back into these communities and experience the joy that both of you have had in your careers is the green fields here, right? So thank you for bringing your diverse voices, perspectives, and backgrounds. And to all of you tuning in, I also want to thank you for being a part of this. And let's keep the conversation going. Whenever both Kate and Shari share out their resources, would love to see comments and other resources, people who have been influential, any books, anything where you can inspire women to get back into these industries or even start in these industries later in their career, and see how we're actually fostering just a more diverse perspective in these industries. So until next time, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Shari. Thanks, Britt. This was great.